Reggie here. Reggie here.
Nintendo is an awful company.
Thank you. I'll be dropping the title that's meant so much to me.
I mean, what?
That's a lot of money to spend $60 to replay a game.
Well, you know what?
Are you fucking kidding me?
We're pleased to see the reaction so far.
This is fucking disgusting. On no planet can you defend this. $80 for a game that is graphically less impressive than most Wii titles I can think of. Do not buy the Switch 2.
We gotta get an Xbox.
Do not buy its $90 controllers or its $80 games. Are you out of your fucking mind? Do not buy a $450 glorified Switch 1.
Yep, I'm retiring.
What makes Nintendo any better than these companies?
Resident Evil 4 on GameCube.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Matt Diamaz here. I'm joined by Cell, Gold818, and Nate. And this is the Nintendo Switch 2 podcast. We're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, the hardware, the specs, the pricing, and everything else involving the new console released by Nintendo. So let's begin, shall we? I'll let you start first, Gold.
I actually think this is going to be an interesting release by Nintendo. I feel like it's actually kind of going back a little bit more to the GameCube roots in a way, trying to actually make it a little bit more competitive hardware. Though that does come with a modern pricing scheme that we will get into. But I think there are definitely some interesting elements to it. I'll pass it on to Cell. I'm curious what his thoughts on this hardware release is going to be.
I mean, honestly, I'm kind of in agreement with you. In a weird way, the Blue Ocean strategy that they've done since the Wii, because of the GameCube's kind of like oopsie failure to compare to the Xbox and the PS2 at the time, this is kind of a step up for them. I mean, there's some things I'd like to hit it about it later on, but if they're going to be pushing the specs more, I'm kind of waiting to see what it does. So, I mean, with that being said, I'm really just more focused on the release day, as well as like how well is it going to perform on the release day? How well is the public perception going to be? Because if this is supposed to be, like you said, in a sort of GameCube-esque type of way, that just makes me think, how's it going to compare to other rivals, as well as considering. And I we'll talk about this a little bit later, but the price hikes of the games themselves, what is that going to mean? And I know, Matt, you've kind of been having issues with that as well.
Well, here's the thing, that this is still a developing situation here. I mean, yeah, the backlash and everything has been just chaotic at the moment, but I was just talking about it earlier. I'm thinking this is going to be like a Sonic movie situation where everyone's just pissed off about something, and then when it comes out, it's like, oh, okay, never mind, they fixed everything. It's all good, all good in the hood. So I don't know. Anyway, what do you reckon, Nate? I don't know.
I mean, my thought is basically that people are going to be angry with it no matter what happens, right? And it's still going to sell regardless, I think. I'm really excited about these specs. I'm very eager to see the performance on this, which is something I usually don't talk about when we're talking about Nintendo products, right? Because Nintendo products tend to not emphasize, raw performance. It's more of it's more about the whole experience with a Nintendo product. But looking at these specs, I'd really like to hear what you guys think about the specs. We can wait to jump into that a little bit, but
yeah,
I really, really like these specs.
Yeah. Before you even kind of get into it, let's kind of think about this. Let's do the first thing off the list here. What about the thing? What do you think about the name? Do you think that kind of sells? Do you think that's one of those things where we go, oh, just Switch 2? Because remember, last time Nintendo did something similar to that is, the Wii U. But then again, we've had game. But then again, we got Game Boy Advance, we got SNES. Nate, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm not a fan of the name. The name leaves little to imagination about what it could be, about what it's designed to do. I think of all products to give a proper name. The Switch 2 should have had something better in store. A Switch Advanced, a Switch Pro, maybe. I don't know if the Pro would make sense with this being a successor, but
PlayStation made that mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, I'd like to hear what would have been the right name. I think it's a minor detail, but marketing is very important. But again, it's still going to sell regardless.
Sal, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, not only to piggyback, but to kind of on the contrary. I don't think the Switch 2 is a great name, but like Nate said, it's gonna sell regardless. It's a Nintendo product. And speaking of another console we might have missed that had two in it, or not really two, but like there's the DSi, right? We had the DSi, we had the 3DS, we had the 3DS XL, then we had the 2DS, and then there's like the new 3DS and stuff like that. So it's just, I don't think the name's going to hamper it too much. Sure, when I heard about the Switch 2, partially I was kind of like, oh, no, they're not going to do it, because there's been people who've rumored about the Switch 2 even before the leaks started happening. They're like, oh, they're going to make another Switch. And my initial thought was, no, they can't be. This is going to be a new revolutionary system, still akin to the Blue Ocean strategy. That's why we're a little bit surprised that they're trying to put up a fight against the other players in the space, because the Wii was the answer to the GameCube's failure in a sense. It's like, at the time, historically, because the GameCube was like, hey, I've had one. It's a great console. It was fantastic. But now, because of that failure, especially with the PS2 coming out and then the Xbox coming out, that was Nintendo going, you know what? We need to kind of do a more of a greater common denominator scenario. Let's do the family thing, and that's the Blue Ocean strategy. It's like, we're not going to try to aim with high performance. We want it to perform, but essentially the Wii was a gassed up GameCube, and it kind of like, they're good at reusing old hardware and pushing the limits on that, and I don't think that's a bad thing. We got some great games out of that. We had the Wii motion controls, Wii Sports. You probably had one or knew somebody that had one, and this was the must-have console. Heck, this is a console that defined my childhood, and of course I have a little bit of bias with it, just because I'm more of a Nintendo fan than really I even expected to. And we got Super Mario Galaxy out of it. And the Switch is already an amazing console. Like, I've owned the OLED Switch and then the Light Switch, which, the OLED has the bigger screen. And I've played with the regular Switch, and I've had the Switch Lite. But, I think it's going to resell regardless. But one thing I do want to say, though, I could segue into this, and I think we could segue into this a lot. The reason why I preferred the Switch Lite over the OLED is because I didn't use the Joy-Cons as much as I thought would happen. And also, the Joy-Cons seemed a little bit, I mean, of course they're made out of plastic, but I felt like I could break them easy, which, I mean, it's plastic, so no duh. But, going into this, I saw that they had the magnetic Joy-Cons. Like, that's going to be interesting. I know that, I'm probably sounding like a caveman right now, but I haven't really seen too much of stuff like that, especially how's it going to hold up with the Switch, especially with kids. Like, remember, Nintendo's still family friendly. What about kids? I mean, what do you guys think? Matt, what do you think about the whole situation with the peripherals?
Well, I just want to go off of what you were saying about the history of Nintendo. I feel like since the Wii U came out, Nintendo wanted to be sort of like a more family-oriented system, like more affordable with maybe not so overkill hardware, just so it could appeal to more people, and it did. The Wii, just friggin' went crazy. But then it's like they tried to do the same thing with the Wii U, and it's like nobody really cared that much about it, even though there was some great games on there. I like Bayonetta 2, blah blah blah. But I feel like nowadays that we're coming out with the Switch 2, it's they've sort of stepped up their hardware game, because I mean, it doesn't make any, it's not really a surprise to me that the Switch is the price point it is, because Nvidia, Jesus Christ. But I don't know. I feel like with the new hardware, with like the Joy-Cons, and they've got like the mouse and everything with the new Switch, I definitely feel like that's a throwback to like the Super Nintendo, you know, with Nat Attack and Mario Paint and everything. That's cool. But having the USB clip-ons with the camera and the, you know, a little bit more up-to-date hardware, it definitely is a lot more preferable than what they went with previously, where it felt like we were living in the early 2000s, you know? So I don't know. I'm very mixed on this release. I'm very skeptical about the performance of the sales wise that is going to happen, because obviously a lot of people are upset. But I'm also realizing that a lot of people just don't give a shit, and they're going to buy it regardless. And that can be a good thing, because it means people just want to have fun and play video games. But at the same time, it sort of feeds into the bigger problem in hand, where companies can seemingly just do whatever they want without any repercussion. But at the same time, I don't think Nintendo's intentions are malicious per se. I just feel like they kind of just want to roll with it at the moment, and they're probably going to change some things up later on, which I'm willing to bet will probably curb a lot of everyone's anger. So I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. At the moment, it's still a developing situation, and regardless of what you think about Nintendo and the Switch 2 right now, you can hate their guts or love them. I feel like we have to wait a little bit more before we can really make an actual opinion on how we feel about this. But at the moment, it's speculation, and it does seem like it is a little bit problematic, but we just don't know at the moment.
Yeah, it's also one thing I find very interesting is, unlike hardware improvements in the past, they've really kind of mimicked what they had before. They know it works. I like what Cell mentioned as far as the magnetic Joy-Con thing. But one thing with the Joy-Cons I like, really, you can use the Joy-Cons as a mouse now. So PC games are going to be a perfect translation onto the Switch systems. Think a game like Sid Meier's Civilization, you know, or an Age of Empires type game, or like a Sim City, that are very mouse and keyboard focused. That's going to be very interesting with those Joy-Cons. And also, you could do it with the right and left Joy-Con. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of controls first-person shooters. I wouldn't be surprised if people who have Switches might have an advantage, because it's going to be so similar to mouse and keyboard in that aspect. But yeah, generally on the peripherals, I think it's mostly similar. It seems a little bit less gimmicky than we see from Nintendo, because I know Nintendo in the past will try some things will work, some things like the motion controls people like, and other aspects just people will be like, this didn't really work out too well. We're not really going to be using this in the late cycle of the console's lifespan. But I want to see what Nate has to say about that.
I mean, this very well could be a true home console as well as a portable device. If you look at the dock, it has 2 USB ports on it, which I'm wondering now if that will allow for a keyboard or a mouse or that type of thing, because they're only USB 2.0. It's a curious design choice, I think. I really like the specs on this, and I would love to see what kind of games will be introduced onto this, just right out of the gate. But hardware-wise, I'm a big fan of the the display option, the 1080p display up to 120 hertz, because that's very unexpected from Nintendo, although not entirely unpredictable, because our phones have that now. Most phones have 120 hertz display. So it's a very good design choice, I think. Now, TV mode, it does 4K at 60 hertz. Now, it also can do 1440p as well. I'm assuming at 120 hertz, but not sure. We'll have to see how that turns out. And I'm also wondering how, if there's any NVIDIA technology in there that will allow for DLSS or AI upscaling, basically. It is a custom NVIDIA chip, so it wouldn't be weird to have something like that. But what do you think?
Yeah,
Gold?
no, I think it's actually very interesting when you kind of take a look at it spec-wise, because, again, this, and we'll get back onto this a little bit later on the pricing, but like this will explain it. And if I'm not sure that they're going to put any type of AI stuff in it, it seems a little too new for Nintendo. Nintendo likes to wait for things to be fully tested out before they adopt it. You know, hell, this is kind of weird, but like they advertise 1080p in 2025. That's an interesting thing. Now, 120
Oh,
FPS,
yeah.
some people will care about that. Most Nintendo fans, I don't think it's going to be that much of a big deal. 4K on television. Welcome to 2025. That should have been kind of standard for a while, but yeah, no, I think a lot of these specs really kind of shows Nintendo. It's like, okay, we're tired of really making this a cheap system, and we wanna actually be competitive with this, and also with a lot of the indie games and stuff like that. I think this hardware is going to support a lot of that. I'm curious, Cell. I know you also tampered around with the Steam Deck. What do you think about the Switch 2's competitive aspect, especially in the indie game market?
I don't know. Because here's a couple thoughts that I'm running through. Is like you said, because they can be used as mouses, right? They're gonna have at least the window or possible opportunity. I don't even know if it's confirmed yet to go into like more of the PC game territory, like not high tier games, but for example, a good like PC game that they could do, right, is like there's Graveyard Keeper, and then there's another one's like what if they bring, I don't know if Steam's going to do this, but just to kind of throw the ball out there, like Portal or Portal 2, you know, the ones that started on PC. I mean, and then, you know, what if there's a segment that kind of leads into some of the most popular games on Steam? That's kind of what I'm thinking. But also comparing that, I do have a Steam Deck, and man, that's a hard competitor for it. Now, I think what Nintendo has going for it is it definitely is Nintendo, and I think that it's going to help it and hurt it at the same time for perception. You know, Nintendo's always been this family-friendly company, and like Nate said, they want to get out of this. They want to be seen as a bit more mature now, not in percents like PlayStation, but they want to play with the big dogs a little bit more, which, I mean, I'm okay with that. I kind of was liked to their family-friendly style. Not that they couldn't or shouldn't made mature content in games. I mean, heck, you have plenty of games that look very friendly on the surface, but have deeper, darker tones of maturity in terms of story and theming and stuff. But compared to stuff like the Steam Deck or the MSI Claw, really, the Steam Deck's going to be its like biggest competitor, to be honest, closest to price, closest to specs. That is going to be a point of contention because the Steam OS works really good on the Steam Deck. You have the trackpads as well, and you have a Steam Deck dock, which can be hooked up to a monitor, which you can have a mouse to it. You kind of see where that's going, right? And the Steam Deck's extremely modular. I don't know how Nintendo is going to let you work on their Switch, but the Steam Deck has the ability to where, like, if I wanted to, right, I can go swap out the hard drive for something bigger. They have manuals that allow you to take apart your Steam Deck. They show you instructional videos, where Nintendo's coming out from more of an Apple esque situation, where they definitely have their brand to go about, and that's just something to keep in mind. It's their brand. It's going to be the biggest helper and the biggest vice that they have to kind of overcome. If they can't reconcile that, then I don't know where it'll go, but it's definitely going to face some tough competition towards the Steam Deck. Matt, what do you think about that?
Well, here's the thing. I'll just pick up on what Nate was saying, like how all mobile phones and stuff have like the 120 hertz now. That's the thing that I feel like Nintendo always wanted to do. They wanted to wait for stuff to be tested and fully optimized before they implement it into their hardware, which also means that their chips and whatnot would be cheaper, which would be more affordable. But I feel like in the current year, with, you know, all the economic turmoil, it's kind of hard to really avoid a big price tag, if you will. Having the 4K and all that stuff, I definitely feel like the Switch 2 is kind of aimed at more hardcore gamers. Like, it's kind of like they're trying to be a little bit more appealing to like older people, which is why they're trying to put the Discord chat in there, and, you know, the custom chip, all this storage, a huge amount of RAM for better performance. Because I remember the original Switch It had like 4 gigabytes of RAM, if I recall correctly. I'm not sure. You guys can Google that. And I remember a lot of games would crash a lot just because it just couldn't handle, so much stuff going on. So I feel like on its own, this system will definitely perform way better than the original Switch, which is kind of what you want to do when you release a new system. And the fact that it even has like audio enhancements and all sorts of stuff as well is something that I've never really seen from Nintendo well, ever. I mean, it's kind of like they're finally trying to. They're definitely competing with the Steam Deck. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a direct competition to the Steam Deck, and it kind of even justifies the price tag even more so. Because how much is a Steam Deck? Like, whoa, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like the hardware is very appealing to people that want to experience high quality gaming. But at the same time, I don't think the price tag is that astronomically high that it would turn a lot of people away. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's sort of like, I don't know. In Australia, it's going to cost like $712. Okay. Maybe it's a little bit less acceptable now because we're a lot more advanced as a society and we appreciate cheap things. Like Nintendo have set the bar of being an affordable gaming console like supplier for the last good like 20 years. So I don't know. I'm just hoping it all pans out, but you never know with this type of thing. Anyway, we'll get to the next topic here with the games.
Oh yeah, no. I definitely think the games are gonna definitely be interesting. Now, I'm not the biggest Nintendo guy personally, but I think as far as an indie game platform, this is gonna be remarkable. I kind of emphasized that a little bit before. But I'm curious what Cell and Matt are gonna think because I know historically you guys definitely grew up on Nintendo platforms. You guys have a lot of that Nintendo nostalgia. But yeah, and before we kind of wrap this up on pricing, I want to really see like as far as what you guys think are the games. And Nate, you can go ahead last because I want to hear what you're similar. You have a kind of a similar game history to me, but I want to hear what those hardcore Nintendo fans in our chat actually think about this. So, Sal, curious about what your thoughts on core Nintendo experiences.
So, I mean, honestly, whenever I play a Nintendo game, I'm not going to try to wax poetic about it. I'm just going to say the games have always been fun. Like Matt said, too, Nintendo has kind of like been this hero for me because it's family friendly. It had the performance for what it needed to have, right? And I didn't have any really take issues with it other than Sonic games, but we'll throw that up for now. But yeah, you know. But Nintendo has always had that. A couple things that I've noticed: Nintendo polish. When their games worked, it worked. Now, there's always, exceptions to the rule. There's definitely been some jank lately, especially with some later title games, and I think Matt knows what I'm about to go into. But as far as I'm concerned about it, like I don't fear for Nintendo's new games for the IPs. I'll be honest, Super Mario Odyssey was fan-freaking-tastic. Now, the issue that I had with it is it was $60 in a 5-year-old game at that point. Like, that's not okay. Especially with, one of the biggest contentions with Nintendo's Switch 2 dilemma is that the games are going to be $80 to $90. My take on that is simple. I don't like that, but if people start buying it and people, obviously Nintendo's going to pay attention to what sells, right? I hope people don't buy it. I hope the Sonic movie thing happens where they have to re-render the character and that they have to change the pricing. And I mean, $60 is a lot. I hope that like a freaking 5-year-old Kirby game still isn't worth $80. And Kirby's not. I love Kirby. Don't get me wrong, but it's not Mario. It's not Zelda. It's not to the top IPs. But it needs to be with the core experience, and that is fun, polish, family friendly, quality. And I think Matt knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and by the way, you need to knock it off with the Kirby slander because there's going to be hell to pay. He's right next to me. He's ready to go Burko. Anyway, like...
Well, I love him. Don't worry about that. I love him. One of my favorite games on the Switch was Kirby and the Forgotten Lands. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, it better be. Anyway,
That's stolen from me.
Look, I've seen all the launch titles. I've seen the Mario Kart World, the free roam stuff, kind of like Diddy Kong Racing from 25 years ago. But the physical price has got me a bit worried because I like buying used games. Oh, here's another thing the region locking. That's another problem because I like buying like Japanese carts and stuff off eBay and whatnot because they're usually like half the price. And the fact that we can't even do that now is kind of disappointing, but I don't know. Maybe it won't be so bad. I mean, it could be fixed with an easy patch. You never know, or a mod or whatever. But I don't know. The $90 price tag, which is roughly like $120 Australian, it's kind of hard to swallow. Because if you want like just 5 games, you're going to be paying like $600 Australian to have 5 games on your system, and I don't. That's more than the console. Like I don't know, but
We like to collect older games, at least you and me,
yeah.
and then buy some used games. There's obviously the digital versus physical emulation. Like I collect emulation consoles. The Steam Deck can emulate all the way up to a Switch. You guys take the rails. Go for it. I want to hear it.
I really hope that backwards compatibility is a priority, as it usually is with Nintendo. I would like to see, in addition to new games, I would like to see, how it performs with emulating the older games. I'd also like to see some other things like support for Discord, support for other gamer-like programs as well. I'm very curious about how that will turn out because it seems like it's got a good microphone in there and it's going to support good communication. The pricing is something I'd like to hear you guys talk about as well.
Well, like I said before, given the state that the hardware and chip manufacturing companies are in at the moment, the prices have been skyrocketing for the better half of 4 years. There's no secret. Ever since the thing that happened in 2020 happened, it kind of messed everything up, and things aren't really getting any better with the market's taking a nosedive, which is great fun. But I don't know. I don't think. I feel because they're using mobile hardware, I do believe it kind of still gives them the advantage. Like, let's say if Nintendo released something similar to the Steam Deck, they shoved a freaking 3090 in there or whatever, we'd be paying like $1,200 for the damn thing. Let's not kid ourselves. The fact that they've been able to even do like $459 or whatever it is acceptable. And I've agreed with Gold on this. Like initially, like I was. I fell for the rage bait at first, but when he started laying the points out to me, I'm like, okay, this sort of makes sense. It's Ampere, like it's like a 2020 graphics chip. So, hell, I was using hardware from 2019 all the way until this year because it was so damn good for what I wanted to do. Like I only do 1080p gaming and stuff like that and streaming. So I feel like that's not the real issue here. I think the issue is that a lot of people are just so used to Nintendo being a little bit behind with tech, which also made it more affordable in a way. And because the games were so simple, like because Nintendo developed games have always just been like, just put greasy Italian on screen, make him go bing bing wahoo. It wasn't like, okay, we're gonna animate 6 million trillion polygons in Unreal Engine 4000 and make it look like photorealistic. No, it was just Yoshi bouncing around, eating fruit. Like, so it kind of made sense for them. And because they appeal to children, it's like, okay, that's fine. You can get a cheap system and it appeals to kids and adults because they grew up playing Nintendo games. Hell, my first system was the N64, right? And regardless of what people initially thought about that, I think that was one of their best systems, even though it was, the cartridges were a little bit up there. And that's another thing I want to bring out. Like, the pricing has sort of always been an issue because Nintendo have tried different things with different hardware and different formats and mediums, and they just cannot seem to find the middle ground. And I felt like they did that with the GameCube with those small discs, because then you could just go to your local pawn shop and pick up Mario Sunshine for like $5. And it's like, wow. Okay, now it's kind of a little bit different because when you want to pick up a physical game, it's going to be marked up. You know, there's going to be assholes on eBay scalping it, and the only way you could really do it efficiently at launch would be to buy a digital, which is $80. And the thing is, with digital, it's always been an issue with stores closing. Like, if something happens to your system, or you just neglect your console, like after a long period of time, you just leave it sitting in the cupboard, and then all of a sudden you want to pull it out, and then you forget all your shit, or something's updated which you've missed out on, which migrates your account to something, and you can actually access your games or whatever for whatever reason. It kind of becomes a big problem there, because it actually hurts preservation. And I feel like that's why a lot of these, you know, people are so gung-ho on emulation. They're like, we're gonna fight these guys, we're not gonna own nothing and be happy, we're gonna own everything on our computers. It's like, I don't know, it's just I feel like that's just it. Like, I feel like just video game ownership and just going full digital. Let's be real. A lot of people don't want to get cartridges like anymore, because it just takes up so much space. A lot of us are millennials, right? We live in shitty apartments. We got no space to put like 1,000 games like in the closet, right? So unless you're a collector, I mean, you know, and you can flip that for big money later, then, but I mean, that sucks for us, because people that want to buy games, they can't buy them because everyone's scalping them, collecting them. It just sucks. And I feel like the only way to go with that would be digital. And I kind of feel like that's why they've been trying to push the digital option as a cheaper option, just so that people can migrate to that. But I don't know. What do I know? I've only been playing video games since 1993, so.
Yeah, I mean, the days of cartridges are, for better or worse, coming to an end. And that might be good, that might be bad. I think you've highlighted that already. In terms of the pricing, I think we're really going to have to see this thing in action before we can speak to the pricing. You know, it's hard to say before you have the thing in your hands and before you see how it actually performs, I think, is the biggest thing.
So, I mean, if we're talking about the pricing thing, another thing that I want to kind of pitch to you guys, because it does relate to pricing. We talked about a little bit on emulation. As someone who has like a Miu Mini Plus, and who has like third-party hardware like the Ardu Boy, and heck, I have a PS2. I'm literally looking at it. It's staring me back. It's PS2 Slim, staring me back at it, going, "You haven't played Spyro in a month. What are you doing?" You know, and I have my Steam Deck, and then that it does speak to something, because we're obviously seeing them trying to be more performance based, at least in terms of like, yeah, let's get our, you know, let's get out of the old family friendly, you know, behind the times, economical, you know, thumbs up. We have a console at home, Nintendo bullcrap that's been going on. I love it, like I said, but it's been very family friendly, very economical. And I like that as a person who has a kid and who wants to see them play video games when I get older. And you know, that's, I can see where they're going, and that does beg the question where emulation is going to go, because we've seen these new emulation consoles come out that can run GameCube, that can run PS2, that can run all of these old games near perfectly. You can put them on an SD card. You could download the ROMs on the internet, as well as the BIOS, even though I can't tell you where they are because that's illegal. You know, the great pirate era has begun. We're full force into it, and like Nate said, chips have just gone. Like, especially like cartridges. As much as I like to eat them for breakfast because they're delicious, they're gone. People want to own their games virtually. And I collect older games too, not for like selling purposes, but for historical purposes. I also know that, hey, you know, you got an old GBA that might not last forever. Those will degrade over time unless you just actively maintain them and repair them. But if they're going to get more expensive with the console and more expensive with the games, then, you know, people want to play games. People want to play old Nintendo games. And I'm not looking forward. I kind of have a salty thing about this, if you can't tell, about the whole Nintendo Online. They're not bringing back their old IPs for you to experience their history, which they kind of have over the years with the whole Switch Online subscription. But even as I was paying for that, I'm like, look, I love that, but it's kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, Gold, what do you think about that? How is this going to affect pricing And then how do you think, and Matt, jump in on this too, Nate, jump in on this free for all. How do you think that the emulation community is going to go with it, especially before we can see what this console's done and afterwards? Money is definitely involvement here. If they don't do something about the pricing, then, and we're going into the age of where Nintendo is now going to be a serious console competitor with more capabilities that are more like high-end console like and even PC like, where does that leave room for the emulations as well as physical games, old games, and other things? Because emulation's getting really powerful. So pass that to Gold.
So yeah, this is going to be very interesting with the pricing. Now, personally, and just kind of a little bit of rebuttal to what Matt was saying, I think it's technically fair, and I think it's going to so I do think a lot of Nintendo fans are a little spoiled. They're kind of used to cheap consoles. Fair enough. A lot of consoles have always been underclocked. They haven't been high performers, honestly, when it comes down to it. Nintendo's not a Microsoft. They are not a Sony. They don't put all the hardware they can jam into that little box. But as we're kind of going in this kind of 2025 era, and as Cell was saying, well, if they price it too high and it becomes inconvenient to buy an $80-$90 game, right? Now, I think the console hardware itself, I think it's fair as of right now. I know there's some speculation on tariffs, whether that price changes or not. But going forward, is it just going to be easier to just be like, hey, I can emulate this, I could do this?
Yep.
And when you're looking at Nintendo, and people kind of like it in some ways, but other people are like, their online shop, even with the Wii U, and they've always lacked behind things like Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. Everybody's known that, but they eventually catch up with Nintendo eShop and so forth. What's going to happen at the end of life for the Switch? The Switch 2. What does this console look like in 2032? What does Nintendo as a company do, right? Because let's be honest, Xbox is basically a cloud machine. They looked at like what Google Stadia and OnLive did and said, "Hey, we're Microsoft. We could do it better." A lot of people use Game Pass, GeForce. They love streaming GeForce Now. A lot of people are getting underpowered PCs, laptops, and just using GeForce Now because the latency is so low for most of America. With things like Starlink, cloud gaming's not that hard of an entry like it was 10, 15 years ago. Now Nintendo is trying to sell this $450 box. It says it has some decent native hardware, I admit. But how are you going to compete with something that's $10, $15 a month and you have an entire 1,000 plus games library? I'm not sure how well that's going to. Or on the flip side, if you're just a Nintendo fan, you like playing the old stuff, all of a sudden, guess what happens? You're going to be like, I will just emulate this on a Steam Deck. I will do this. Piracy might be. So I think there's going to be a lot of problems for that. Now, granted, for kids, I mean, we do have a fertility crisis in the world. So what are you going to do when there's less kids out there? There's less of a demographic that's going to be picking on this thing, picking up this stuff. Is it going to sell on Christmas? Absolutely. Is it going to be profitable? Sure, maybe. But what happens when the hardware becomes too expensive, tariffs, all this other stuff, it's going to kind of get a little crazy. And when there's other gaming options out there, that demographic of Nintendo fans is going to be quickly shrinking. I'm curious what Nate has to say about this.
Very good points. The pricing of games, 80 to 90, now that I've thought about it a little bit more, I think that's actually crazy. They really need it to be at the $39.99 point. Because I remember when the Nintendo DS came out, and this is a while ago, but those games were $29.99, $39.99, sometimes cheaper. Now, of course, inflation's kicked in, of course, but I just don't see kids being able to afford $80 to $90 games. Look, if the accessories are going to be pricey, fine. If the console is going to be pricey, and I'm not sure if I think it's pricey or not, I have to see how it performs first. But initial cost to entry, that's one thing. But continuing cost to play is a concern. And I think they're going to have some type of cloud gaming service. And it's going to have to be affordable, by the way. Now, they don't have to put all their flagship games on that cloud gaming service, but they're going to have to offer something of that nature. The pricing of the games is going to be big, and that's my biggest concern, I think. Gold?
Yeah, no, no, and yeah, no, excellent points there, Nate. And honestly, I think Nintendo still thinks it's 2010 with a lot of this stuff, especially with the price and where they are and so forth. But yeah, what this will be good now. People are going to buy that first batch, that second batch. I'm not sure where this goes in a few years. I did debate with Matt previously before the stream, and I said, hey, I think it's a fair console price. Now, learn about the games. That's how they're trying to recoup the cost. I'm a little concerned about that. And I don't know how a smaller company, especially compared to Sony, Microsoft, is going to be able to compete with that. And DMAZ, I'm very curious what you had to say about this.
Well, with the whole cloud gaming thing, I kind of feel like that sort of goes hand in hand with the whole digital, like, just the black hole that is swallowing everything right now. Like, you got to be digital, cashless. And I don't know, like, because my dad's friend has an Xbox and he plays on the cloud and everything. And it's like, he doesn't seem too bothered about it, and I know a lot of people really like cloud gaming. I mean, if you go back to the Google Stadia, it was kind of a different story, but nowadays it seems to be a lot better. So I feel like the viability of that makes a lot of sense now, because anybody with a TV can tap into like a 4090 and play games at like 8K, 60 quadrillion billion frames a second. But I don't know. I don't think it's really going to matter. I don't think there's really anything to compete with, because Nintendo seems like its own entity now, and it's always has been. Like, they've always been an outsider. Like, you had Sony and Xbox doing their thing, you know, duking it out, boom, bam, bam, Dragon Ball Z shit, and then you just had Nintendo like, here, I'll give you a cooking mama. I'll give you a Tamagotchi life where you can shit post and get the characters to say stupid shit. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't think there's really anything to compete with. Cloud gaming is cloud gaming, and Nintendo is Nintendo. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Is this seems like an amazing system for 2015? Like
We kind of did need it about 10 years ago, didn't we?
Yeah, that becomes the hardware. Now, granted, we are gamers, we're into this stuff. Grandma doesn't really care that much, so this is going to sell like hotcakes. I'm not denying that.
Oh, sweetie, I got you a Switch.
Exactly. But the interesting thing is what happens when the consumer base gets more and more educated, right? You have grandparents who grew up on the NES, right? So they might still be playing games now, and they're going to look at the systems and stuff, and they know how specs work. They're a little bit more tech literate. Digital literacy's on the rise. I don't think Nintendo can continue to get away with this stuff anymore. I think just the educated consumer might actually wind up destroying them. So I'm kind of curious, like, what's your speculation with Nintendo as a company? Can they kind of continue being 10, 15, in some cases 20 years behind everybody else in practice when it kind of goes to the future? And I'm curious, Sel, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm kind of in agreement with you. And talking about the cloud gaming, to kind of riff off you and Matt, dude, I was a beta tester for the Xbox Cloud program, and I've had Stadia. Now, I've had Stadia when I wasn't able to afford my own console and afford my own PC. That was a fantastic solution. And let me ask you this question. Nintendo, what's your answer for when everybody's playing cloud console games or Steam games on their phone now? Like that's going to be somewhere in the future, right? Consider that I've lived this experience myself when I was testing the Crew 2 on some AT&T Wi-Fi. I could play it on my phone, 60 frames a second, no problem. I could even do touch controls and with an Xbox controller. You could buy those from Microsoft, customize it, connect it to your phone, have it mounted on a little rig, and then, absolutely just going to town, playing with your friends, having Discord on the side. Like, our devices can do so much. This is a great console for 2015, and no doubt that it's going to sell. It's freaking Nintendo. They're their own worst enemy and their own ally at this point. It is, yes, they are separate from the rest, but now, as you've seen with like the movies in Hollywood, people aren't taking stuff at the name now. They're like, well, if it's not going to do what it's promised, they're going to start looking into it. People are becoming a little bit more sharper about the products. So, with the rise of emulation power being sort of the main way to play games of yore, and that way I can go up to my grandma and be like, hey grandma, you like Castlevania? It reminds you of the war. Here you go. Here's a freaking Miyu Mini with it on there. Go ahead and have your PSP all day long, and relive the glory days of being Belmont and killing Dracula at this point, killing the undead. But seriously, in all honesty, we do have to realize that the fact is smartphones are getting more powerful, PCs are becoming smaller and more capable. Consoles are just kind of they're going to be phased out, especially with cloud gaming. You know what? One day, if you walk into a T-Mobile or Verizon, hey, if you get this new iPhone, what it will come with is Xbox Game Pass. You can play Forza Horizon, whatever the hell that's going to be. In that time, I'm going to be old, withering away in an old folks' home or something like that. And you can cloud game on your phone with your friends. This is not something that's 20 years away. This is something that's probably like 3 to 5 years away, realistically, if you take a look at the technology. Gold, I want to know what you think about that, especially with the competitive pricing of cloud streaming services versus Nintendo's $80 fucking games. Excuse my language, but there you go.
Fucking hell, Mark.
No, and it's true. And Nintendo used to think, oh, well, it's big cities. It's developed places that have high-speed internet. Amazon's coming around the corner with Project Kuiper. Starlink is everywhere. Before you know it, in the next 5 years, everybody's going to have gigabit internet wherever they go on their cell phone. That's already a thing right now, and it's already being made. I don't know if Nintendo's even prepared for that future. And when somebody goes, by the way, you are in a third world country, and maybe not even third world, second world country or something like that, and it's either $10 to stream all these games, or do you just go ahead and buy a Switch 2, and then it's a $90, and then it's like a premium pack that brings the price to like $120, $150 in some cases. If you want to get all the knickknacks and premium content, DLC, you know how this goes. I mean, how do you compare? How do you compete with Steam? How do you compare with PlayStation Store? How do you compete with Xbox Live Marketplace? Like, I don't even know, because everybody knows this with Nintendo. Nintendo is very strict when it comes down to keeping their pricing. They're like, we need to make sure that doesn't drop by like more than 5%. And yeah, Nintendo's fans are used to that. Don't get me wrong. But also, here's the thing. Kids are getting into gaming a lot younger. And Nintendo used to be the console for 12-year-olds. Then they became the console for 10-year-olds. Now they're the console for 6-year-olds. They're running out of runway when it comes down to it.
No, they're the console for 30-year-olds now.
Well, yeah. Well, it's U-shaped, right? It's the console for 6-year-olds and the consoles for 45-year-olds. Yeah, it's on both sides.
My 12-year-old had a lot of fun on Doom on the Switch. He loved killing demons.
But if anybody's any bit tech literate, they're just gonna go emulate the stuff. And again, this is a high-powered console for Nintendo. That doesn't mean it's a ultra powerful console in general. And when the Steam Deck 2 comes out, or whatever the next generation is, I'm pretty sure it's going to have the hardware to emulate that. Very, very, very well. Nate, I'm curious your thoughts.
I think one of the things, when you're talking about emulation, a lot of Nintendo games seem to be, they're not as multiplayer as other console games. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if they're not multiplayer, it's a pretty easy choice for people to exotically stream them, shall we say. Because if it's single player, you're not losing anything if you're emulating on a computer or a Steam Deck or something else of that nature. Eh, I don't know. I don't know. Sal, what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
this?
I was about to say, it's not that they're not multiplayer, but I do get what you're saying. Look, consoles have this multiplayer network where somebody who's playing Xbox is aware of, like, the PlayStation Live service where people can talk to each other and stuff. Xbox has a fantastic model with that, despite its issues. Nintendo does have, like, Nintendo accounts, by the way. I've played with people online. It's not that it's not there. Honestly, Pokemon and Mario Kart are pretty good with that stuff. I think the main issue that you're trying to harp on is that they're not as well known. They're not as widely, like, Nintendo doesn't have it. I haven't checked right now, so you can call my bluff later. I don't think Nintendo has an app for that. Whereas, like, I can get on the Xbox voice chat through the Xbox app while playing Xbox, or while my friends are playing a game and I'm doing something else. Right? It's kind of like a weird little Discord area. Like, we have a ton of apps that can emulate the function of Discord through live connective services.
Got to get your Nintendo friend code.
Yeah, absolutely. Gotta get your Nintendo friend code. Like, dude, Pokemon Go, weirdly enough, has better connectivity than that, and it's made by Niantic with Nintendo and Game Freak's permission. But at the same time, yes, to kind of round it out with the whole points of, like, cloud gaming and multiplayering, that was not a word, but I just said it. You're kind of right, Nate. It's just kind of weird because Nintendo has put themselves in this little pocket where it has to be all proprietary. Nintendo this, Nintendo that. We're not really going to try to reach out and kind of explore more. Hopefully, with this console change, it's going to be for the better. I'm a little bit more prepared emotionally now for them to kind of step into the big leagues now. This may not be an impressive console for 2025, maybe 2015, but if this gets them to do let's say they launch another console in 2029 or 2028, for example, 4 or 5 years down the line, right? And it actually does kind of compete with the Steam Deck or the newest iteration of handhelds, that's fine. I think they're trying to test the waters with that. They're trying to move incrementally slowly. I don't doubt that they're going to be here. I don't doubt that the cloud services might be in their future, but they are going to be, I wouldn't say behind the times in terms of technology, but they're going to be a little bit more apprehensive to integrate a lot of these newer things into their consoles and services. And look, we've seen that, like, the biggest. I always look at one game in Nintendo's arsenal because it really does reflect this, and it's Pokemon. Pokemon was the longest thing to catch up to modern, sort of, the modernity of Pokemon.
So are you trying to bait me? Are you trying to bait me?
A little bit. Here we go.
Oh no! I don't want this podcast to go for 8 hours, bro. Come on.
Look, I'm just going to say, Pokemon's a weirdly good indicator of the console's health and growth because of how stuck in their ways Pokemon usually is a little bit, despite the changes. They kind of are. Go into it. What do you think about the future of Nintendo Switch relative to cloud gaming and, with the pricing as well?
Well, I feel like Nintendo can definitely tap into some aspects or concepts with cloud gaming. Whether or not they can execute that very well is anyone's guess, because, Sony and Microsoft have had the better half of 10 years to kind of figure it out. Nintendo have been, well, have you ever tried to play Splatoon on the Switch? It's like the online barely works and and there's no voice chat. But with this thing, it's definitely an upgrade, and I feel like they can add things to the Switch. And yeah, you could probably set something up where you could stream games on your Switch. It's not impossible. There's a thing, I'm not sure you guys are aware of it. It's called the internet. And God damn, I didn't know that. But it's
we didn't have this in Alabama.
But yeah, I definitely feel like Nintendo can adapt a little bit quicker nowadays, because like what Gold was saying earlier about how people are a lot more technologically savvy now. Even Grandpa Joe over here, like 55-year-old with his like dual monitor PC rig over here, is going to be looking at this being like, should I get this from my kid? Man, this is far cry from the old days with the Apple II and everything. Like, I don't know. I feel like the market's there. It's a matter of picking a business strategy and a format for streaming games to the system. I don't know, and I want to say this as well. I don't think I even brought this up. Putting the GameCube games on the Switch is a power play, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit. It kind of feels like the ship sailed with that. People have already been obsessed with the dolphin shit. Like when the thing that happened in 2020, everyone was playing Kirby Air Ride on Parsec and Dolphin. Like that was like our comfort game to get us through the chaos. Like, yeah, let's consume the brain rot. It's like
not only that, but the emulators. Think about this: the emulators wind up doing it better than Nintendo themselves. They'll release stuff and it has glitches and stuff, yet the emulation community is able to fix that stuff and patch it.
I played Pokemon Brilliant Diamond on the Switch, and playing it on the emulator is like the only way to play it because the game is so blurry. You have to like add like FSR and all this stuff to it so you can even see what's going on. Like,
I think Matt, you saw me stream Custom Robo on my Dolphin emulator on the Steam Deck.
Oh,
it
yeah,
actually worked pretty good.
Oh yeah,
That's an old game too.
I don't know
for the game.
I will say though, I have seen the new Pokemon trailer. As you know, I'm a big Pokemon guy. I've literally got like 1 trillion videos on my YouTube channel playing the games, and I've been playing the game since 1999. I don't know about it. It kind of looks like a mobile game. The little man goes up the elevator and the frame rate tanks. What does that tell me? You know, like
I think it'd be a fantastic game. Perfect, perfection all the way.
You want to? Yeah, no, but. It's gonna be really interesting, and I honestly, where some of us are pessimistic, some of them are more optimistic.
I don't want to be pessimistic. Like,
I want to go around the table. I want to see. This is section 7, guys. I want to go around the table. I'm curious what you guys think. I'm gonna save the last for DMAZ here, but what's your final thoughts on the Switch 2? Cell?
I mean, ultimately, I was being sarcastic with the Pokemon game. I think it's going to be a little bit better. I don't think it's that crap. I'm excited for the new Mega Forms. But on the Switch 2 side, as long as they bring back Custom Robo and like give it a revamp, you have my praises. I will still continue to have the gold knee pads for Nintendo. In all seriousness, though, we really don't know until we know. That's my thing, is we could speculate all we want. They're obviously pushing for bigger performance. They're obviously trying to get away from that family-friendly, a little bit away from that family-friendly stereotype. Because I understand they want to push more powerful games, more powerful hardware. Dude, like, I freaking love Pikmin. I haven't played Pikmin 4 yet, but I want to see a better Pikmin. I want to see better Pokemon. I want to see better games. Not at the cost of my freaking wallet, though. Of course, I can look. As a person who has kids, right, and who's going to go to GameStop, I don't mind, because if it's going to compete with Steam Deck, $450 seems like a weirdly fair price for me. That's reasonable. Not $90 games. I think that's their biggest issue right now. I really do think so. I'm not even talking about Pokemon here. I really think the $90 games and the refusal to mark them down after so long, because let's be real, this console's really, it's going to have to take time to get the kinks out. And we've all seen this with the Switch. Now, granted, this may have been just due to the 2020, like, because of the issue in 2020 and putting weird product delays and stuff, and we're obviously having crap, economical times, and just the tariff situation going nuts. The second or third iteration of the Switch 2, wait a couple years, and I hate to say that because it really shouldn't take a couple of years for a console to be great, but we kind of seen this, right? The Switch 2 gained a lot more steam a couple years afterwards. One, with the library being better, with games being better, the new releases, they're trying to get into the swing of things. We're at a console launch here, so we don't know until we know. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is I'm not trying to poop on it. I'm not trying to lift it up to the heavens and say this is the best console ever. I think this is kind of a weirdly good move for them to be going. I want them to do better. I want Nintendo to succeed. Obviously, I'm a fan of Nintendo. I'm not always a fan of what they do, but I want them to succeed. But I don't know until I know. We will have to wait and see and accept whatever happens. I just really, really hope that people don't buy these $80 to $90 games. It doesn't matter how much they're worth it. If they got to be made out of gold, frankincense, and myrrh for me to actually consider that. But realistically, that's a huge drawback. The console price is okay. It's comparable to the Steam Deck. Steam Deck 256 gigabyte, get it shipped to your house is $426. This is $450 with tax, $500 with what? 500 something dollars, depending on state taxes and stuff, for Mario Kart in there. Okay, that's a free $90 game that you get. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, we got to see. I really do hope that they, weirdly enough, I hope they get better. That's all I can say. I don't think it's bad. Let's just wait and see. Matt, what do you think? Or sorry, Gold, because I want to hear
No,
Matt.
Nate, then me.
Oh, cool.
I think my final thoughts are basically we will see. Regardless, I think it's going to be an obvious improvement. I think it's going to be a decent product at bare minimum. I'm excited for it, but I want to see how it performs, and I want to see what pricing looks like with tariffs. I want to see what gaming prices looks like. Are all games going to be $80 to $90? That's my biggest thing. But I'll pass it over to Gold.
Me, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, this is one thing. We've been very critical on Nintendo, and I think it's a good thing. It's a lot of people who are going to be listening to this. They're going to really have to kind of gather their thoughts, what they think about this, hear different opinions. But at the end of the day, there's one thing that Nintendo still does have, and that is branding. Nintendo does not have a branding issue. That grandpa who played NES, their son played GameCube, and their grandson is going to be playing on the Switch too. I mean, when you look at it, why do you think Universal Studios decided to put Nintendo Land over there? Having a theme park based around Nintendo is genius.
I'm definitely going to
more kids know the icon of Mario and Zelda and Link than honestly many other franchises. Some might even know know the Big Red Plumber more than they know who Mickey Mouse is. It's very interesting. So when you kind of look at this is an icon at the end of the day. It is definitely going to sell. We're just more concerned is how much longer can Nintendo keep pushing this? We've seen other icons in the past, just kind of disappear. And I think our concerns in this whole group chat were more or less like, come on, Nintendo, we expect better for you. And we should. We should be critical of Nintendo. And we should also appreciate when they do the right things. And there are some things with this console they are doing right. There is an improvement over the Switch one. We cannot deny that. Are we a little skeptical on the pricing? Absolutely. Are we concerned about their competition? It's not because we hate Nintendo. It's because we love Nintendo. We want them to be able to compete. They're filling a void in the market. It's just they're not filling it greatly when it comes down to it.
It's like how you tell your child that they're awful every single day so that they can get better for you out of spite.
I hate
Sure.
Nintendo. We need to boycott Nintendo. By the way, I love Nintendo.
Let's not blow up Nintendo World, guys. But yeah, no. When it comes down to it, I really think this is going to be a turning point for Nintendo. Yeah, are they playing it safe with the Switch 2? Absolutely. It looks very similar form factor from the Switch 1. What does a 2032 console release look like for Nintendo? That's going to be very different. And Matt, kind of wrap us out, take us out. What do you think about it?
Well, in the far distant future, we'll land untraveled, no man's land. I don't think Nintendo are even going to be making a new system. They're probably just going to do the cloud gaming at this point. It'll just be, here's a box, plug into the Matrix, guys, get your cyberpunk fun going, away you go. It's just, I don't know. I kind of feel like if things do not get better economically, then it's going to become increasingly less viable day by day to manufacture hardware in mass amounts and make profit because the parts are so expensive. But at the same time, it's like, hey, that's what they said 20 years ago. There was a huge chip shortage, I believe, during the Y2K thing, and nothing really happened there. So what do I know? I'm just speculating. I don't think things are going to get that bad. But I don't know. It's just the future does look. I wouldn't say it looks bleak for console gaming in general with the rise of emulation and all that, but at the same time, it's kind of like the average household family is getting smarter. Yeah, if you could believe that. And and they're gonna find ways. If they can save money, they're gonna do it. If they can buy like a $500 computer and play literally tens of thousands of games on it from the last 40 years, they're gonna do that. If it means that the
$1,000 smartphone
if it means the parent doesn't have to work overtime for about 60 trillion hours to pay for it. So, especially now with the cost of living crisis, with everything getting more expensive, like worldwide, let's be real here, it is going to be a tough market. Is it going to sell? Yeah. There's going to be pay piggies that'll be like, Daddy Nintendo, I love you. Let me suck on the teeth. And then there's just going to be people like me that are like, I don't know. Should I buy it? I already have a Giga Chad computer right here that can play anything I want. And the emulator for the Switch that got taken down already got replaced about 60,000 times. So it's like, what do you do as a parent when you have a child? You know what I mean? Like, what do you say? Should I buy a computer or should I buy a system? Well, I think the answer is quite clear. But people like tradition. They like sitting at a TV. They love their CRTs. They want to plug something in there and play it in their living room. They don't want to be locked up in a basement like I am, running away. You know, being depressed and miserable, saying, "Oh God, why am I playing this Pokemon game? Oh God, I went through the wall. No, please help me, Kirby, help me." And it's just, I don't know. It's the future. The future. Is there a future? I hope there is.
Pass it to Sal real quick.
Yeah, but a couple things that I wanted to ask, and this is to all of you, and this is to anybody listening too. Let's say, you know, I would kind of leave the pricing of games out of this because it is going to be a big factor. As someone, you know, like I said, with a kid, I do want a console because it's just, you know, computer literacy is good. But to start out with a console, I think that's fine too. Convenience wins in the end. If it's easier for me as a parent to buy and play games on this console without any hassle, without any extra steps, then that's going to win, especially with pricing. Of course, performance is going to be key because I want it to run the games I play on. But let me ask you this, guys, and to anybody listening, what do you play video games on right now? Any sort of games on right now? And then would you give that up for a Switch? That's the question. Now, obviously, the Switch can be secondary, right? But would you buy one? You have your gaming needs met right now. Would you buy one? Would you feel necessary going to a Nintendo Switch? Switch 2? That's my question. And to that, I'm going to pass it back to Matt to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we've said everything we need to say. Thanks for everyone who participated. I think we covered a lot of ground here, and I'm actually quite impressed with your guys' way of words here. I wasn't really expecting that. But anyway, whatever happens, happens. Nintendo's Nintendo. Will I check out the Switch 2? Maybe. I don't know. If I get some money coming in, I might just test it out to see if I can get games running pretty good on my setup. But I don't know. At the moment, I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait. And I mean, I've always bought used games and everything anyway, so it's not really even a big deal to begin with. Like, I could just wait a while for everything to go down in price, so it's no big deal to me. But I don't know. I'm not trying to be offensive to the centrist soy boy here, but I'm just saying, like, we just have to let things play out, right? Before we make rash decisions about how we spend our money, because it's more important than ever to spend your money wisely. But that being said, people are going to buy it, and maybe I'll buy it. Who knows? I love Pokemon. I'm insane. Help me. We're done. That's the end of the podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys maybe next time for another podcast. I don't know. I kind of like where this is going. This is actually good. This beats talking about politics for 2 hours, so we'll keep it going. Anyway, take it easy, guys.